with Investing Education Academy. Today we're going to be talking to you about the word recession, what it means, what everybody thought it meant. Leon's going to tell you why we chose that topic, and of course, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping.
Yeah, so came across some really interesting numbers that I think a lot of us are going to like, who are mainly stock market investors. So just take a step back. So like since the Fed started raising rates and beginning of 2022, there's been this rampant call for recession, recession, recession. Every quarter, it didn't happen. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's being pushed off. It's being pushed off. It's being pushed off." It's going to happen, and at some point, we will have a recession, right? But this call about recession was around the recession was going to happen because the Fed was raising rates so aggressively the last year and a half. So far, it hasn't happened. A lot of theories why. Nobody really, yeah, economists who've been around 50 years have no idea why we haven't faced a recession. When in the past, when the Fed raises rates this fast, the economy typically tanks. Um, and the reason it does because when you raise the value, when you raise the cost of money, uh, companies borrow less money to expand plants. People hire companies hire less because they have less money. Investors, we don't borrow money to invest in the stock market, so it just the economy kind of freezes up. That's typically what happens. Hasn't happened this time. Oh, the biggest one is mortgage rates. Mortgage rates, go through the roof. People that have arms, the rate resets a lot higher. Foreclosures happen. We saw that. That's what mainly happened in 08, 09 with the Great Recession. But a lot of that hasn't happened, and just part of that is because a lot of us learned from 2008, 2009, and got fixed rate mortgages, so they don't reset with the fluctuation of interest rates. That's part of it. But that didn't explain why we haven't had a recession at all. Like the economy is actually growing now, and this is never, at least it hasn't happened, I don't think, in our lifetime, where the economy is growing into the Fed raising rates. Crazy. So one reason I found was really interesting. One of the reasons why we may not have hit a recession is based around baby boomers, right? I'm gonna go through some numbers real quick, so just bear with me. Keep your ears open. I'm gonna flesh out some numbers here, then I'll explain everything at the end. So as of right now, there are 330 million people in the United States, roughly 330 million. And our collective wealth, all of us, everybody in the United States, our collective wealth is about 156.2 trillion with a T trillion dollars, right? Now, baby boomers, this baby boomers make up 76.4 million of that 330 million. So they make about 22% of the US population. 22%, right? And of those 76.4 million that are baby boomers, roughly 60% are already retired. So there's 40 million more to go, right? Now, here's a crazy number. Of that, remember the 330 million people in the US, our collective wealth is $156.2 trillion. Baby boomers make up 22% of that. Crazy number is they control 50% of the wealth in the United States. They control $76.2 trillion of the US wealth. And yet they only make up 22% of the US population, right? So what that means is they have a massively outsized effect on the U.S. population because the U.S. economy is powered by consumer spending, which is all of us spending money, and baby boomers have a outsized effect on that because they're consumers and they spend, right? So now let's go back to baby boomers. Baby boomers are retiring, right? I think I think the age range is I think that so the term baby boomer covers like 1947 to I think 1965, basically the generation after World War II. People came home from the war, had a lot of kids, and that created the baby boomer generation now. Now they're now in retirement mode. They've been retiring for I think a decade plus, but they're really in a high retirement mode right now. Another crazy stat is that over the next 8 to 10 years, numbers vary, but roughly 10,000 baby boomers will be retiring every day. Every day, 10,000 people retiring every day, right? So those are the numbers behind it. So I'm going to go high level again. Baby boomers make up 22% of the population, but they control 50% of the wealth in the United States. Now let's think about what baby boomers are, right? Think about what they're retirees. What do people do in retirement? They spend money, right? That's the whole point of retirement. They saved all their life, 76.2 trillion dollars to now spend it, right? And remember, 10,000 of these people are going to be retiring every day for the next, say, decade. So this guy named Ed Yardeni, he's OG analyst on Wall Street. He's postulating that the reason we haven't seen a recession is because of this cohort, this group. They're spending money like mad. Cruises, traveling, restaurants, buying vacation homes, spending on the grandkids. Like they are taking their money. Again, what's retirement's mandate? Retired people's mandate is to spend the money that they saved. They're doing it like crazy.
And Leon, just to touch base, this is also too for everybody who's in the IA community. This is why you start planning early so you can actually have the monies to spend later on. Now, one part that is I'm not sure if you're going to touch on or not, but you have to think too. A lot of the baby boomers who are, retiring and will be retiring over the next few years, they're retiring on pension money. That doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So when you look at they're spending money, they've raised this capital.
Well, hey, but real quick, explain what a pension. Explain what a pension.
All right. Normally, when we go to work, especially if you're 20 something watching this, important information. 30 somethings, 30 something.
I'd say even 30 because I think our generation and we're Gen X, which is
I was gonna get there.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone else has time. I mean, pensions. Good. Yeah,
30 somethings. 20 somethings. You definitely are like, what? Like, what is that? And then 30 somethings, you've heard about it. You've heard this story, this myth of pensions. And 40 somethings, you were hoping to slide in, but you just couldn't find a job that gave a pension.
We just missed the cut.
We just missed that cut. The 50 somethings, some of you all jumped ship from pensions thinking this new self-funded retirement was going to be the thing. So anyway, let's talk about what a pension is. A pension is when you go to work and after you stay at the job for X number of years, normally until retirement. When you leave or when you retire, you get a percentage. Normally, it is a very healthy percentage. Government workers right now are smiling, but even for the government workers, if you're like 35 or younger, you weren't offered a pension option. Now, government employees do have a different style of retirement, but in general, it is self-funded retirement as well for you all. But pensions is meant you got a percentage of your salary for the rest of your life. It could be anywhere from 30 to 80% of your salary, even after you retire for the rest of your life. Why is that different than a 401k or an IRA or some of the other investments out there? It means that whether you put money in or not, as long as you have shown up to work and you made it to that retirement date, you will receive that pension, barring insolvency of the company, which has happened before, but is very rare. Then you have the people who are self-funded retirements, which are the 401ks, the IRAs, individual retirement accounts that we're doing now, Roth or traditional, whichever you're in. And then you have the 457 plans, 403B plans for school employees. Those plans mean that you have to put money in to have money in retirement. If you choose not to put money in, when retirement comes, you are in for a rude awakening. Why, again, is that important for what we're talking about today? With all this pension money being fed to these baby boomers, they aren't worried the same way other individuals might be worried about where the next check is coming from. They know they will receive what's called their pension benefits. Once they exhaust these funds and or this next group, which is our group, 40 plus group, come in and we're going to retirement, it's going to be a very different story. Because many of us were hearing our parents say, get a job, stay into retirement and get your pension. And the mentality of what they were saying was correct. But many of the parents weren't thinking about the fact that pensions don't exist anymore. And they were feeding us this myth that if we stayed with the company forever, we would get a pension because they just couldn't conceive what it would be like to self-fund an IRA on your own. And you have limits, like you can fund it at different levels. How many of you all have checked your retirement at work in the last 4 years? Many of us haven't. You don't even know how much you're giving, like how much your percentage of your salary you're putting towards your retirement. And when was the last time you checked your allocation? Probably never, to be honest with many of you. And so retirement after the baby boomers are gone, that pension era it's going to be a very different world on how people spend money once this is done. For some, it's going to be better because they did invest and they were reasonably aggressive in their investments and they maxed out what they can give to themselves for later on. But there's a whole lot of people who were surviving and not, just financially unaware of what they should be doing to prepare for their own retirement.
And then that's a great point. I need to think about pensions. And then also, if you think about that, like Brent said, they're essentially, for lack of a better term, getting like, it's not free money because they worked for it, but it's money that they didn't self fund. Their jobs gave it to them. But also think about it. These people also invested in the stock market, invested in 401ks. Like I'm sure they had other retirement plans as well, aside from the pension. So they're not only getting money from their company, they didn't have their own retirement account, maybe a 401k, 403b, as Brent was saying, and then maybe even doing their own investment in the stock market. This is why they have literally half of all the wealth in this country is with them, is with baby boomers. So, okay, now you're saying, what does that have to do with the stock market? What does that do with investing? Well, like I was saying, Ed Yardeni is postulating that the reason we haven't had a recession is because, again, the U.S. economy is based 70% on consumer spending. That's what keeps the economy running. Baby boomers have 50% of the wealth. Their mandate is to spend money because that's what retirement is. 10,000 of them will be retiring over the next 10 years plus, probably. Sorry, 10,000 of them will be retiring every day for the next 10 years plus, more than likely. So what all this means is there's this huge tailwind underneath the U.S. economy in baby boomers, right? And as we know, the stock market is influenced, not directly controlled, but heavily influenced by the U.S. economy. Now, not saying there won't be recessions. I'm sure. I mean, there has to be. That's just the nature of economies. But generally speaking, they may be lighter than the past. There may be more downturns than actual recessions. Again, I'm not calling for any of this. I'm just putting this out there. So don't come back to me when something breaks tomorrow. But said that to say for investors and for the stock market, this is a massive tailwind underneath that can prop up the U.S. economy for the next decade plus. And I never heard this theory until I read this article, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Again, U.S. economy is 70% powered by consumer spending. Baby boomers have half of the wealth in the United States, and they are now retiring at a rate that's, I think, maybe unprecedented in the past, at 10,000 people per day, which means there's going to be this $76.4 trillion that's going to be pumped in the economy over the next. And remember, that number is going to grow too, because the stock market is going to likely continue to go up as it's done in the past. Real estate values are going to continue to go up as they've done in the past. So the 76 trillion that they're in control of is actually going to increase in their retirement. So how does that benefit us? What I'm kind of agreeing with Ed Yardeni is that this is a huge tailwind underneath the U.S. economy. Yes, there'll be recessions, but we almost have like this backstop of retirees that can somewhat backstop the U.S. economy and help keep the stock market rising into the future because of their spending. One other point is that like I said, there'll be 10,000 people retiring for the next decade. The estimates say. So in theory, that can mean like next decade plus of a bull market. There's precedent for that, right? Because the greatest recession we had, and it's called the Great Recession, in 2008 2009. From the bottom in, I think it was 08, the stock market bottomed, and we had about a 12 anywhere from 11 to 13 year bull run from the bottom of the Great Recession through the COVID recession 2020. So there's precedent that the market can run for 12, 15, maybe even more years, and us being a sustained bull market. So and that bull market was based on all the tech that was spent, all the productivity we got from tech spending in the 90s and the early 2000s. This one now, of course, now we have AI and this kind of this new tech revolution, but we also have this massive group that is mandated to spend half of the value, half of the wealth in the United States being retirees and baby boomers. So I think that's really, really good news for the stock market, the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah. This is also the reason why you want to start talking to your parents about wealth transfer. If you guys aren't having the conversations, what wealth transfer looks like, what wealth is transferring, if any, it's important, because with much of what's happening with the baby boomers, you're also thinking about what's going to happen with healthcare. It's a lot of money being pumped into healthcare because there's an aging population of people who can afford to pay for the healthcare. when you have this transfer of wealth, what happens to the next generation who help, and also too, let's talk about most people with pension and pensions also had really great benefits that followed them into retirement. And so that's something to consider. But now going into this new group, talk to your parents. Where is the wealth? What transfers to me? Because in some situations, depending on how they took the payout, you might be slated to receive a few payouts for a certain number of years, depending on again how it's paid out. That's a whole nother conversation. But you can talk to your parents about succession planning. It is really important. Understand where they're receiving their money, what money transfers, and is it properly titled to transfer if anything were to happen to them. Because
Oh, oh,
the
sorry.
back end of what Leon's talking about is the next greatest transfer of wealth that's going to occur.
Yep.
So that's on the back end.
One point I just want to make on money. So before COVID, the amount of money, it's called the M2 money supply, but just think of the amount of money that's like in our checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs, all that stuff, money that we could access readily. Before COVID was $15 trillion. After COVID, with all the stimulus we got, it went up to just under $22 trillion. As of today, that number is only down to about $20 trillion, right? So what does that mean? That means there's still $5 trillion that we're all sitting on right now, that we got from the COVID stimulus that we haven't spent yet, right? So think about that. So we again we have that's another tailwind behind the U.S. economy of consumers, us, who have this extra $5-6 trillion we have not spent yet, that will eventually work its way into the economy, on top of the baby boomers, which is going to be a perpetual money machine for the economy the next decade plus. I mean, and we're living longer, right? So these are people that could live for another 20-30 years. Now, of course, not saying the bull market will last that long, but it's something to think about in terms of where the economy may go, why we have not had a recession with this historic Fed rate hikes we've been seeing. Just that baby boomers are going to be a very powerful, like I said, money machine or spending machine for the U.S. economy going forward. On top of us, just general population that still have $6 trillion in stimulus money.
Yep. So I mean, with that being said, we owe you all two. Sorry about that. We owe you all two stock picks. Now, what we've been doing is we've been putting our stock picks into our platform. So you can go to the platform. It's www.ieamembers.com. If you're already a member, just log in. If you're not a member, please become one. Once you get into that, you can go to a section where it lists all of our stock picks, and you'll see the additional two stock picks we'll be choosing today. Leon, do you have anything else before we go?
No, that's it. Just I'll say this. Right now, the market is pulling back. I think the S&P is down about 4 to 5%. Revisit your portfolio. Revisit your watch list. These are the times you want to buy. I've been stressing. I mean, we always stress this. I'm the pullback don. I love buying pullbacks. So I've been very, very active in my account the last 2 weeks. I'm actually going to do some more stuff today. But the market is pulling back. These are the times you want to buy, because 10, 15, even 5 years out from now, you'll be happy you bought at lower prices. So definitely revisit your portfolio and your watch list.
Yeah, and if you are buying at this point, this is what many consider dollar cost averaging down.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we sometimes always buy top of the market. Leon is like he's disciplined in his approach to purchasing stock, and he will wait for pullbacks sometimes. And this is one of those moments I think it behooves you to listen, because this is your opportunity to dollar cost average down. So thank you everybody for being with us. We will see you all in 2 weeks. And if you have questions or topics you want us to talk about, let us know. We will do our best to get those topics touched on. And if you're watching this and you're like, you know what, I really do want to jump into your Facebook group, you can join the Facebook group and just search for Investing Education Academy, and we should pop up and jump in, join the group, and we look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day.